Hey friends, welcome to my channel. Today is a red, white, and blue patriotic themed mega video. Now remember, this video is going to have some easier projects for new crafters and some more advanced projects for longtime crafters. All right, now let's get crafting. For this project, we're going to be using 3 of these long signs from the Dollar Tree. I bought a bunch of them around Christmas time and I've just been holding on to them. Now we're going to pop off the ribbon on the back that is stapled on and pop out all the staples. And keep in mind, if you have a bunch of wood on hand, you definitely could cut out a big piece of wood into this shape. But I wanted you to see that you can use these boards to turn into so many cute things other than just them being these long rectangle signs. Then you can see that I lined all 3 of them up and I'm creating a kite shape because we're going to make a vintage looking kite. I'm showing 2 different ways to cut these particle boards, which I love using a lot. One is with the Dremel tool, and keep in mind, please do use some safety goggles. Now, if this is not your speed, it's too fast. If you're comfortable with tools, it might be. It's really great to be able to cut these boards really easily and you get a nice clean cut. But if power tools make you nervous, you definitely could always score these boards with a craft knife, just like this. Once you score over it a few times, they snap really easy. Now, I will say that when you snap them, they do kind of have a rough edge. So what I would recommend is probably making a large paper template so that you can score both sides, and that will end up giving you a cleaner look. So you can see here, I'm showing that when you only score one side, you've got a rougher look on one side. And then the next way to clean that up, if you don't score both sides, is using a pair of scissors, and you just go around it and simply snip off any of that extra stuff, and then take a sanding block and sand off any of those rough edges. Once you've got your kite shape, now I'm going to take my leftover painter sticks that I'm always cutting down in my craft room. You could use popsicle sticks for this too, the really large, thick ones. And then you're going to create a nice joint system. This is going to allow all the pieces to hold together, and then give everything a nice coat of white paint. I actually painted mine 2 times to make sure the paint was nice and thick. Then you're going to come in with an American blue, and at the parts where the edges meet up for that top and bottom of the kite, this little corner, you can see that I'm doing 2 coats of blue paint. Then I put down some painter's tape so that we can create some stripes on the white part. Once I went over that with 2, I think 3 coats of paint, I wanted to make sure it was really saturated. I then was able to pull back the painter's tape, make sure it was really dry so that I can address any little bleeding spots. And there are tons of tricks out there to use for painter's tape, but this is just what I did for this project. You definitely could always put down the painter's tape and then put a little bit of white and then add the red to seal that line, but this is just how I did it. Then at the joint where you can see the red and white stripes coming up to the blue, I put a ribbon there to clean up that line. And then now I'm adding on some cute stars that are yellow. Now to get my dots on my flag, I'm just going to use the back side of my brush. And I'm going to just dot along and make as many of them as I can on here. I just think this looks so cute, especially when you're looking at someone's front door from the street. This is going to be going on my front door. And then after that, we're going to come in and we're going to do some distressing to make it look a little more vintage looking. You could skip that part if that's not your style. And then I'm going to take this white nautical rope from the Dollar Tree. I'm going to glue it and staple it into place because where we live, we got a lot of wind here in the state of Missouri. We want to make sure that this does not fall apart being on the front door. So I'm adding on some rope with hot glue and my staple gun. So I'm just going to come in and just make sure I secure it really well. And at the end of the rope, you can see there that I tied a knot so it looks like a vintage kite that you would see on like Mary Poppins at the end of the movie. And then I'm going to come in with some extra red, white, and blue fabric. I'm going to take some strips and I'm going to just simply tie them on and then cut the edges at an angle. I went all the way down the whole kite, making sure they were all different ribbons and different colors. I just thought this was so cute and so just adorable. I don't know what else to say. I really enjoyed making this project so much. And then the last little bit, I just created a handle to be able to hang it up on my front door. This DIY is so simple to do. I just went and found a whole bunch of red, white, and blue books. You can pick them up from the Dollar Tree or a thrift store and give them an upcycle. And it is just the cutest thing ever to take these different books and put them in the red, white, and blue order. Now, I would recommend gluing the book covers together so that when you wrap twine around, which you're going to see in just a moment, that they stay in place and they don't slip out from when you bind them together with the twine. So once I had all of the covers glued together, I was able to then take a long string of twine, and then I'm just going to wrap it around really tight, as tightly as I can get it, add a little dollop of hot glue, and then tie a simple bow around it, and then just snip off the extra. This DIY is super simple. I'm going to use this foam wreath as well as this red and white stripe and this blue and white star ribbon. Now, I found these ribbons at Joann's. They had these on clearance, so I got each one of these for about $1.50. So I could not believe the price of these ribbons, because originally I think they were like $6 or $7. And the sale that they had was so phenomenal. I actually picked up quite a few of them for the future. Now you can see that I'm just simply ruffling on the ribbon. The only real tip I have about this is when you come around the back side, you don't need to ruffle that because that's going to be leaning up against a wall. And then the second tip, when you transfer to the blue and white star ribbon, pull back the red and white ribbon, and then you're going to ruffle going all the way up into it to make sure you have a nice clean line so that the ribbons transition from one ruffle to the next. And then you're going to cut off that extra, glue it down into place, and then pull the red ribbon back down. So that way that blue ribbon tucks up into that first ruffle row that you did. And then I will say one more thing, I think it is important. I like to hold the wreath up and look around to see if I see any of that green foam popping out. And if I do, then I'm just going to take some glue and just put a little dot and push down the ribbon to make sure you can't see that green foam. The last thing you're going to need to do is just add on some kind of a twine or a ribbon to be able to hang it up and tie it on in front of a mirror or a wall or even your front door, and it just has such a beautiful impact for the 4th of July. Just in case you missed the announcement, I have a brand new website that's HeidiSonboul.com. Now, over on my website, you are going to find all kinds of printables. It's where I'm uploading my printables so that you all can grab them in a safe, free area where you can download them without any issues. And I have the printable from today and the printable from a couple weeks ago that I did. If you want to get those printables, head down below, linked in my description box. It'll take you to the website. And while you're there, it's really easy to be able to pin any of these projects to Pinterest if you want to save them for future dates and ideas to be able to remember where you grabbed them from. This DIY, I'm going to be using 2 of these containers. They're in the party section at the Dollar Tree. Some of these push pin tacks, and then some twine, as well as some paint and some scrapbook paper. So I'm going to take the lids off of both of them. I'm only going to keep one of the containers, and we're going to turn this into a patriotic drum. Now, I have major regrets that I did not just take these lids outside and spray paint them. I wish I had. It was actually kind of damp and cloudy on this day when I was filming this one. So I highly recommend just spray painting it. It'll be such a quicker job than what I was doing. I actually had to paint it several times and the paint just wasn't adhering to it. While those were drying and giving me a hard time drying, I went ahead and started working on the barrel of the drum. So I'm taking some stripe paper. I picked up this one from Joann's. It's by a company called American Crafts. And I went ahead and measured out the thickness I would need to be able to wrap around. I thought this stripe would be very cute with the blue bottom and top. And then I'm just going to glue it right onto that drum using some hot glue. Now it's not long enough to go all the way around because scrapbook paper is a 12 by 12 size. So I went in and added a little bit extra and tried to line up all of those stripes the best I could. Now, this is the part where, friends, I just get so impatient sometimes when paint is taking a long time to dry, and why I said I wish I had just taken this outside and spray painted it. You're gonna see that I put my finger right in a spot that wasn't fully dried because I wasn't being patient, and I ended up accidentally tapping it right there on my drum. Oh, I was so bummed that I did that. So do wait for it to dry, and I highly recommend just spray painting the lid outside because this particular box has a very shiny texture to it. Once you've got the top and the bottom on your little drum, doesn't it look like a drum? I just thought this was such a fun DIY and a cute thing to put out for decor. I'm now going to take some twine, and I'm meeting two up at the meetup point. I'm gluing them together in one spot, and then I add in a little push pin. Now you can see here that when I went all the way around, I forgot to not push that first one all the way in because I still had to loop in that last twine that came around all the way around the circle. So that was my thing I made a mistake with, again with this. Number one, not waiting for the paint to dry and using spray paint, and then number two, not using the push pin in properly. I should have just waited like here. You can see that I brought the two twines together and then I pushed the push pin in. So I thought I would just show these just so you don't make those same mistakes that I did. Now at this point, had I not put my finger right on that stripe paper, I probably wouldn't do this next part, but I decided I'm going to go with it anyway because why not? We can stop there or take it a little further, and we're going to just make ourselves two cute little drumming sticks. Now I've taken this long s'more stick, I've heard people call them, or skewer sticks. I'm going to cut off the very tippy point of it, and then I'm going to slide on one of these wooden beads, and they fit on there perfectly. They look just like drumsticks. I thought this was just so fun. And now I'm going to take my wire cutters, and they work great on these skewer sticks, so I'm going to cut two. And this is where I'm using the bows to help cover up that fingerprint I put on my drum. Now, had I not done that, I probably would have missed out because I actually loved how this ribbon looked at the very end. I felt like it took it from it just being a little drum to it actually looking like a home decor piece. So I added on some different ribbons, I added in the drumsticks, and then I also added on a big star at the very front, and turns out I love how it finished, and it was a happy accident with that thumbprint. For this DIY, we're going to be using 5 sticks that I found out in my yard, some fabric, some twine, and then the free printable. We're going to be using the smaller star because we're going to be making a whole bunch of darling flags that you can stake all over your house, in planters, in a cute bucket. I just think that this DIY is so fun and so easy if you're looking for a craft for the 4th of July season. So what you're going to do is you're going to start with a white base. I'm just taking some white fabric and then this other neutral pattern fabric. And then I'm going to grab my scissors and some red fabric, and I'm going to just cut a whole bunch of strips. This is going to be for the stripes on the flag. And once you've got enough of different patterns, I think that's what makes it so cute, is having all kinds of different patterns that you're working with. You're just going to glue them on. And because we're going for a very rustic look, you're going to notice that I'm just leaving the edges kind of rough. If you don't like the rustic look, you definitely could always clean it up with trimming off those extra fibers, but I really loved the way that it looked. Then I'm going to take some blue and I create a rectangle that is going to go in the upper corner, added some hot glue, and then just went ahead and stuck that on. Now at this point, we're going to go ahead and use that smaller star in the printable. and you're going to go ahead and just cut it out. You can pin it to the fabric. I didn't do that, but I definitely would recommend it if you have a hard time holding the fabric and the pattern together. But go ahead and cut out your star and then glue it on. And then the last step that you're going to need to do for it to assemble your flag is just put some glue and roll it onto the twig that you can find in your yard. Now, I like a lot of different patterns and designs on these flags. So each flag had its own little personality with different patterns and different ways that I did the stripes. You can see on this one it had 3 stripes, and then another one it had 4 stripes. So I just really played around with it until I got them all the way I liked them looking. And you can see on this one I didn't use my printable cutout star. I just used a star fabric instead. Now we're going to give it a rustic look. I'm just taking some brown paint in a paintbrush, and I'm lightly dry brushing on some brown paint on these to make them look like they've been aged and they're really old vintage flags. I think that this is just so darling, adding this little detail. Now remember, don't do this to an actual flag, just because that is one of those things that we learn that we should never disrespect the flag. So if you make them out of fabric, it's totally fine to do it, but I highly recommend not doing it to an actual American flag to distress it like that. And then the last little bit of details, I just added on a couple twine bows and it was ready to be used. This next DIY is going to be using this long sign from the Dollar Tree that I just cut down a little bit shorter, and then I spray painted it a navy blue color. Now I decided I wanted to have some nice hooks into it, so I'm just going to twist those right in so that way I can hang it up on our front door or somewhere in my house if I find another place I want it. And then I'm just going to take some long strips of fabric. You can see here I did a little snip, and then I'm just pulling it straight down and it's ripping the fabric to give it that rough edge. And I'm just going to alternate back and forth between red and white, going all the way across. Then once I've glued it to the back of my long blue sign, I'm going to go ahead and trim down those strips to different lengths where they're kind of close to each other's length and size, but a little bit off so that you can see that they're scraps of fabric. Now this DIY is so popular this year. I've seen so many people making it. I wanted to give it a try myself because I just thought it was so cute, and I just wanted to show you all how I would make it for myself personally for my home. So once I had all of those trimmed, now I know that we could stop there, but I wanted to make sure it was nice and secure, so I came around on the back side with my staple gun. I don't always trust hot glue, so I went ahead and stapled it down on each one of the fabrics, and then I added on this backing to give it a nice clean finish look. I think that this would be such a pretty gift to give to someone who really loves the red, white, and blue look. Then I'm going to come back in because I really like that rustic Americana look. I'm going to come back in and I'm just going to very gently distress the edges to add some more depth and some texture. And then once I had that all done, I went ahead and found a large star that I had in my craft room. I painted it white, and then to make sure that it was going to bond really well, oh, I also distressed, I almost forgot to say that. And then I added on some hot glue and some E6000. My tube of E6000 is almost done. I'm sure you have all noticed in this last couple of videos I've just been really pushing how much more I can get out of it. And I have a brand new tube waiting in my drawer to crack out and get it open. I added the star to the sign and then added some twine to hang it up. If you love doing crafts and you would like to share your DIYs, come on over to Instagram, because each week on Wednesday, I host a DIY craft tour with 3 of my other YouTube friends here. We're all over on Instagram, and each week you have an opportunity to share your crafts. It is so easy and so fun to do, and you get to connect with a whole bunch of different crafters. If you're interested, come on over and send me a message and I will guide you to the right place to get you started on the craft tour. All you need is an Instagram account and a passion of crafting to join. Our next project is one that is also for the front door, and I was so excited. This inspiration came from Pinterest. I didn't dream about this one, but it's something that I have been dreaming about making for quite some time because I saw this on Pinterest and thought this is so cute. So here I am. I'm just taking these 4 different buckets or pots that you can get from the Dollar Tree and a broomstick rod as well as these stars. Now remember, these are the stars I showed earlier on my Uncle Sam. I'm just taking the shish kebab sticks and poking them up into the star, and then I'm going to add some hot glue just to make sure everything is nice and secure in them. And then I wanted to get some gold stars. I also showed this yesterday on a DIY for my DIY daily. I spray painted them lightly gold first, added Elmer's glue, and then added some glitter to get some gold stars in there. I thought that would be really pretty. If you haven't already yet and you are enjoying this video, click that subscribe button and give it a thumbs up. I have so many more fun things coming all throughout June and into July. And next week I will be moving on to summer coastal themed videos. I cannot wait to show you all the channels I'll be partnering with and all of my DIYs that I have in store for you. Now here I am, I'm taking some painter's tape. I sketched out some stars. I cut them out with my craft knife, and now I'm just going to stick them onto my bucket because I spray painted my buckets, and you're going to see them in just a second. I spray painted them 2 red, 1 white, and then the big one, the blue one, I spray painted it white first, added those stars, and then spray painted it blue, and then pulled the stars off. And then you can see here that I added in a couple of little dots on the bucket or pot. I keep wanting to say bucket. And now what I need to do is I need to drill a bigger hole that will fit the rod from the broom up into it, because we are going to create the cutest garden porch pot decor. We're going to be taking this broom and we want to have the handle go into the top bucket. We're going to thread on the small red, the small white, and then the medium red, and then the dark blue. Now you're going to notice as I was threading these on, you want the hole that you drill to be close to the edge because we want them to look like they're tipping over and the flowers are just all trellising out over the side. It's so cute. Now with the rest of the pole, we don't want to break it off. What we're going to do is we're going to just bend it around to create almost like a square. You're going to see me here. I'm going to do 3 bends until I get all the way around. And this is going to allow it to stay nice and snug and secure inside the bottom one, which is the blue one. And so see here, I'm coming around, and now this is going to work in here perfectly. Now when I headed outside to go put the flowers in, you better believe my little Miriam, my little lady bear, she was right behind me ready to come out and garden with me. So you're going to see her little feet and her little hands helping me put in flowers in just a second. She was super into the stars on the stick. That was one I think she was really wanting to help me with the most, not even necessarily getting her hands dirty. She just wanted to do the stars. So here I am, I'm adding dirt in all the buckets first to make sure that it's nice and stable and secure so that I can add in the flowers without trying to hold it up and struggle with it. And you can see that I tipped my buckets back and forth, so that way it has that nice tipped look. And I'm adding in all of my flowers that I picked up from my local garden center. And then, oh, here's Miriam. She just snuck her way in. And she's handing me the flowers, and she's so funny. She was having a lot of fun helping me with this one and kept saying, can we put the stars in now? And you can see her over there to the side. She's touching them and taking them all off, and they're all in her little hands, and she just wants to so badly stick those stars in. Anyway, we added in our stars, and we just made sure we filled in as many flowers as we could so that it can just grow and bloom right at my front door and look so beautiful all throughout this summer, just celebrating our Independence Day and how grateful we are to be in God's country. I am so grateful to live in America. It really has been a blessing. For this project, we're going to be using a hanging 4th of July star sign, a wreath, and then a grass skirt from the Dollar Tree. All of these supplies are from the Dollar Tree except for this greenery. I ordered it off of Amazon. I will link that down below. I just loved this fern plant and thought, oh, it's so pretty to use for DIYs. I cut it up all the time and use it on my projects. So I will link that down below, and I felt like this was the best bang for the buck. You can also pick up things like that at Hobby Lobby and get them with a 40% off coupon or when they're on sale for 50% off. So what I'm doing at this point, this project is really simple and it just is so pretty to hang up on your front door or somewhere in your house, like in front of a mirror or in your kitchen, somewhere on the wall. It's just so cute. So I'm going to be adding in some ferns and then figuring out my placement that I want on my stars. And then I just keep playing with it and keep adding in more ferns until I feel that it is nice and full. And again, this was just so easy to do. So now at this point, I wanted to add in a couple of little white flowers to add a little more height. And then I'm going to come around on the other side and just keep playing with it. Now I decided not to put ferns all over the entire wreath because I really loved that wood element to it. I thought it looked so pretty, and it's a simple but pretty look for 4th of July to be able to display in your home. And then make sure you come around on the back side and add a couple. Don't forget that because it really does fill in the front side look. Now at this point, I'm going to go ahead and take that hula skirt that we had, the grass skirt, and I'm going to just cut off a nice big piece. I'm going to take 2 separate bundles and I'm going to tie those in a knot just like you're seeing here. And I'm going to make one a little bit longer than the other one, and this is going to be the bottom of a bow. I know that sometimes this raffia can be really hard to work with, so what I like to do is I like to tie the 2 separate knots to create the tails of the bow, and then I take another piece and I'm going to twist it just like you saw there, and now I'm going to create the shape of the bow. So this is going to allow you to not have to struggle with it, and you get a really beautiful big bow versus it being kind of short and stubby on your wreath. And you can see here that I'm just putting it all in place, and then I'm going to take an extra piece of that raffia and wrap it around the center point of the bow to create the finished look. Then I glue on those tails on the back side and add the bow to the front. They are separate from each other, and then I'm going to take one of these welcome signs from the Dollar Tree last fall and just glue that right onto the front. For this DIY, I'm going to be using 3 of these glass jars. Now friends, if you've been watching my channel for a while, you'll know that I love decorating these glass jars. I just think they're the cutest way to be able to make easy, affordable decor. And you can use them for any holiday, you just have to customize them and paint them however you want. So I took mine outside, I painted one red, one white, and one blue, and now they're each going to get their own special paint job on them. So for the blue one, I came in with a thin white stripe. Remember, it doesn't have to be perfect. You can see here that I'm just kind of freehanding it and going all the way around until the circle meets back up. The line does, they meet back up from one side to the next. And once I've gotten all the way around towards the top of the jar, I went ahead and moved on to my red one. And I'm now just going to use my marker to draw out some lines for the stars. I will say if you use a Sharpie marker like I did, it will bleed through just a little bit, so you'll probably have to paint over your stars about 2 or 3 times. So you could always try to freehand it, but I don't trust myself with stars. I actually do a terrible job trying to just paint a star without having my little zigzag star line that I learned back in kindergarten. I just like to make sure that I get my stars looking the way that they should, so one of the points don't look a little too long or too crazy. So here I am, I'm just going over those stars that I traced on with some white paint, and then while that was drying, I went back over to the white jar And then for this one, I decided I'm just going to take some twine and I'm just going to wrap it around twice and then tie a simple bow right on the front. And I added a little tiny dollop of glue in there to make sure that it doesn't come untied over time when I'm not using it on off season or if someone were to pick it up, because I'm planning on using these jars to hold utensils for 4th of July. So I put the lids back on and they were ready to be used. For this DIY, we are going to be making this stackable Uncle Sam DIY. Now, he turns out to be so cute and so charming for the 4th of July. I just loved him so much. So what I'm going to be doing is I spray painted the smallest one red, the medium box a tan color for his face, and then the blue at the very bottom is the largest box. So up at the top, I'm going to start on the red one first. I'm creating these really thick bands. I wanted to have a thin red line and I wanted to have thick white stripes because I'm going to come back to that in just a second, and we're going to add some ribbon to it and make it look like his top hat real fancy. You'll see in just a second. Now I wanted to show you, I picked up these stars from Joann's. I used a coupon. I thought these stars are so cute. They're buttons and they come in all these different sizes, and then you can see the smaller pack has really tiny ones. I didn't open those ones up for this project, but I wanted you to see that. Look at how cute these stars are for 4th of July projects. I thought that these are just so adorable. So I'm going to take some hot glue, and on the bottom box, the largest one, I'm just going to glue stars all around the 4 sides, kind of cascading to the side. So it shows a little bit of the blue still, and you can kind of see they're going at an angle. And now I'm showing you that the tan one's going to go on top of the blue. We're not going to permanently glue these things in place on top of each other, because you'll see at the very end, you actually can take it apart and store it all back inside one box, which is the biggest box, which is the coolest thing about this DIY, is that it allows you to store all of the things at the very end inside one box. So I ended up adding 2 eyes onto his face. Then I took a piece of tan fabric. I cut a circle first, and then you can see I pinched the circle in half and cut off a little bit of the side. This is going to allow him to have a little bit of a 3D triangle type nose. So it's just a circle, and I cut a little bit off on the sides once I pinched it together. You can see there to the left of my hand, you can see about how much I chopped off. Not very much. And then I'm going to come in with my scissors. I added some glue on the sides of that circle. I glued it down, and now I'm just kind of opening it up so his nose looks like a nose. And then I took some white felt and I cut out almost like a jelly bean shape for his eyebrows. And then I'm also going to cut out, and it's almost like an eye shape or a leaf shape, 2 of these for his mustache. I mean, what is Uncle Sam without his mustache? So now I'm going to just take those and glue those right into place, and then we can start working on the hat again. That white paint had dried enough. I'm coming back in with some of this gingham ribbon that I picked up from the Dollar Tree around Valentine's Day, but you can use any ribbon that you want. And I'm just going to snip it off. I pulled it around the box and I'm gluing it on the inside. Once that's all glued in place, I'm now going to start doing some distressing. I felt like the distressing is where it really started to come to life and really got personality. So on the blue, I'm distressing with some white, and I'm just lightly dry brushing on white paint. Dry brushing means when you don't just saturate the whole brush head, you just get a little bit and you just keep rubbing it on until you get thin coats of it on there where you're drying it on. And then I went over the blue with the white and the white with the brown. And you can see here that it's really bringing up all that texture, and it just looks so cute. Now around the bottom of the box, I'm going to take some of this ticking stripe. I thought we would give him a little scarf. And I tied a little knot with one piece of fabric and cut a little dovetail at the end, and I'm just gluing that in place. And I wanted it to have that wonky look because it's got that farmhouse, you know, country cute look to him. And then after that, you can start stacking him up. So you've got the base, his head, the top of the box, which is his hat brim, and then the red smallest square, which is his hat. The supplies we're going to be using for our project are these stacking blocks from the Dollar Tree, this leftover canvas that I pulled off of a canvas frame, this wood block also from the Dollar Tree. They just started carrying these and I love them. And then this old post that came off of a stair railing. Now we're going to go ahead and cut off the bottom wood piece that is creating a little bit of a bump that we don't want to be there. And we're also going to cut down the top of it so that it's nice and flat so we can create an Uncle Sam 4th of July themed decor. This is going to be so cute. The inspiration actually came from online. I saw it on Pinterest and I just thought this is so cute. I want to show you all how to make it, my own take on it. So what we're going to do is we're going to take that wood block that they have at the Dollar Tree. They carry these in a couple different shapes, and we're going to be using this bracket block, and we're going to just drill a hole right in the center of it. And then once you've got that, you're going to want to create a little bit of a sinkhole. So we're going to just widen that very top part just enough so that when we go ahead and screw it together, it's going to allow the very bottom base of this to be flat. You want the screw to be able to sink down inside. So now we're going to go ahead and connect them together. I'm just going to add some hot glue to the bottom to hold that wood block on while I screw the screw in it, and to make everything be nice and secure and snug. So here I am, you're going to see it's going to sink all the way down in there so it's nice and flat on the bottom. Now we're going to go ahead and we're going to take some painter's tape. I'm going to cut it down just a little bit so it has a smaller strip there versus the whole wide thing. I want to see more red on the front because again, I'm going off of my inspiration that I saw on Pinterest, and I'm even going to link that inspiration down below so you all can see my version and their version and how to do all these steps. So we're going to go ahead and on the bottom part we're going to add some red paint all over it, and we're going to even go into the base. So the base and the bottom part of it is going to be all red. Just add a nice coat to it, and once it's all dry, we're going to go ahead and then remove that painter's tape to reveal that white stripe down the middle of it. Now I'm also going to come up around the top of this curve just to make sure that it looks all nice and cohesive and painted well. So here you go, you can see the strip and it just looks so cute with that white stripe detail on there. I just love the way it looks so much. Now while that's drying, I'm going to move on to the head of Uncle Sam. I'm going to be gluing 4 blocks together on their sides, and I'm going to do that 4 times because we're going to be able to create his whole head with this. So you can see that I've got 4 and 4, and now I'm going to glue those together at the top and the bottom. And then I'm going to repeat that again so that way it's nice and thick. So I've got the 4 and the 4, so a total of 8 on the back side, and then I'm going to do it again and create another 8 on the other side, and these are going to be sandwiched together like 2 pieces of bread. Now I realized after I did it the first one, it's better to add a little glue on the side and the top so that way everything goes nice and smooth together versus having weird bumps from things not aligning properly. Now I'm going to go ahead and sandwich them together with some glue, and this is going to create a very nice shaped face at the top of our cute post. Then once we've got his face all sandwiched together, we're going to go ahead and move on to his hat, which is also really easy. I forgot to mention as well, I'm only using 1 box of these stacking blocks that you can get from the Dollar Tree. 1 was sufficient for all of this top upper part. So now I'm going to take 3 and I'm going to glue them together on their wider side, and I'm going to lay them down on the top. As you can see here, I've got 3 on one side and 3 on the other side to create the hat, and you're just going to make sure it's positioned in place and everything is going to line up properly, and then go ahead and add some more hot glue to keep it all nice and snug together. You could technically add wood glue if you really want it to be nice and secure, but I think this hot glue is doing a great job in itself. So now that we've got his head and we've got his top part of his brim of his hat, now we're going to do the very top, and I'm going to take 7 pieces and I'm going to just glue those all together and then I'm going to add them up at the top. So that way it creates the very tall hat. Now we're going to go ahead and paint the very top of his hat red, and to continue with that stripe pattern that we had at the bottom of his post, we're going to go ahead and create a white stripe right up the center, and then we're going to wrap around the back with the red going up onto the top and making sure it's covered really nicely. And again, I added 2 coats of the red paint because I wanted to make sure it was really nice and bright and standing out. Then I'm going to take some American blue and I'm going to go around the rim of his hat, and I'm going to just make sure I cover that on the top, on the bottom, on the side, making sure I've got all those spots nice and covered so it looks nice and store-bought. And after I've got that done, I'm going to go ahead and just move on to adding the blue back to the post, because I already have the blue out, and I always like to try to be efficient with my paint so things don't dry up on me. So I'm now adding my blue now that the red is dry on the post, and I'm just going to add on 2 coats of that blue paint. I just love this red and this white together. It is so pretty, all coming together, looking so patriotic. It makes me so happy. Then on the face I added some cream, and I'm going to add just 2 little tiny dots for his eyes. I thought that this was really sweet, just these tiny little itty bitty eyes. And then this is the next cool part. That canvas that we had earlier, friends, hold on to those kind of supplies because you just never know when you can use them again. We're going to use them in just a second to create his little goatee and his eyebrows. I also ended up adding some stars on that I had on hand. You can pick these up at any craft store, but I have 4 stars that I've decided to add 3 down his tummy, and I'm going to add 1 up on his hat just to add a little bit more flair. The original inspiration had it where they were actually painted on the tummy of the post, but I decided to add my stars because I wanted them to pop up just a little bit more, and I had them on hand. So here I am at this point. I'm just going to sand down a little bit. You can skip this part. I know some of you are not so shabby farmhouse, and that's totally okay. If you like it to be more clean and polished, more traditional, that works too. So just skip the sanding part if it's not for you, and then go ahead and glue on your stars or paint them on, whichever one you prefer, and then just make sure there's a nice amount of glue on there so that way they're really nice and secure. And then for added support, I don't want these to pop off, I'm adding with a staple gun a little staple on each one of the stars so it's really on there nice and tight, and then I'm just going to cover up those staples with my white paint that I had earlier. Now I'm going to do the same thing to his hat, and I'm going to make sure that I add a cute little star up there, and then now I can start assembling his little head onto the post. So at this point I really want it to stay on because I don't really have a screw or staple option, so I did add some wood glue and some hot glue for that long-term, short-term hold. Now we're going to take that canvas like I mentioned earlier, and we're going to cut out the shape of a bird's wing, and we're going to reverse that pattern, and then the bottom part of his goatee is going to look like a chubby raindrop, and you're going to just turn it upside down so that you have these 2 bird wings and the chubby water drop at the bottom. And then I doubled them up on fabric so they were nice and thick. When they're on there, it's going to stay on there nice and solid and not bend or have any issues in the weather. And then for the eyebrows, I just added little jelly bean shaped eyebrows. I thought that was the easiest way to explain that they're in the shape of a jelly bean, and you're going to need 2 of those for his eyebrows. Now we're going to add a bow on to add that cute added touch. As if this little guy is not cute enough, we're going to add in a gingham red bow or buffalo check, whichever you'd like to call it. And I picked up that ribbon around Valentine's Day from the Dollar Tree. They do carry ribbon like that during seasonal times at the stores. And now to finish off the look, I'm going to just distress a little bit of the white in his goatee, and I'm going to add a little nose by snipping a small piece of a popsicle stick and just rounding it the best I could to add it on for his little bitty nose. This DIY, we're going to take some tan fabric and I'm going to just cut these strips. You can see that they are 2-inch strips thick, and the length really, you know, it's however long you have your fabric. This just happens to be what I had on hand as some scraps, so I wanted to bring them together to make them even longer. Then I'm going to take some foam core board, and I just cut out a circle that I think it was about 3 inches big. And now I'm going to connect the ends of all of those strips that I cut out earlier, and then I'm going to fold it in half and glue it down so it's one long piece. Now what we're going to do is we are going to first fold down the first little bit, and then we're going to start pleating on this circle, going back and forth, pleating. You push forward, put a hot glue dot, then go behind it and add some hot glue, and I'm going to slow down so you can see it right here. I'm just coming back and forth, zigzagging the fabric, adding some hot glue dots, making sure everything is pinching down into place, and I'm just following the curve of the circle. Right now I am making one of those really beautiful award ribbons that you see. I don't know what it is about these ribbons, but I have always loved them, and I think that they are so cute to display at this time of year with 4th of July decor. I just really love how they look when you pop them next to some books, put them next to a plant, or just any kind of decor that you might have on hand. So here I am, I'm just zigzagging back and forth, and then when I get to the very end, I'm going to add some of that hot glue. But you can see here that I was like, wait a second, hold on, I've got to tuck this down in first. So you need to do your last little fold, and you're going to see right here that I'm going to tuck it under, and then I'm going to get this nice clean line because we want to go underneath the original first fold that you put down. So you can see that I folded it down twice, and now I'm placing it down in there, and then now we can complete that pleated circle. So the trick is make sure that very first pleat, you can be able to lift it up, add in that last tuck from the other end, and then bring it down with some hot glue and glue it into place. So once we've gone all the way around in the full circle, and we've completed that beautiful pleated look, we're now going to take another piece of that scrap tan fabric, and we are going to cut some tails, and you can do these however you would like. There's so many different ways to do tails. I decided to do an angle cut, which was really simple. You just cut at an angle, and I'm going to have 2 different of these lengths, and I wanted to add in a little bit more texture. So you're going to see in just a second, I'm going to grab some satin ribbon that I had at the Dollar Tree, and I'm just going to cut that down and place those right on top, and I'm just going to add some glue to make sure that they're all in the place that I want them to be. I actually decided to add even one more, and I'm cutting those also at an angle, and this is really going to add so much pretty texture to it. Now you can make these in so many different colors. When you see it styled at the very end, you'll see where I'm going with this, but I don't know, I love little details like this, and I personally I'm always looking for these prize award ribbons at thrift stores, but they are so hard to be found because a lot of people collect these, and I just love them so much. Now you can see here that I'm adding on the ribbons to the back of the circle, pressing them all into place, and then the last step is we're going to get a smaller circle from that foam core. We're going to pull it really tight around that circle, and then we are just going to keep gluing down that fabric into place, making sure that you can really see the shape of the circle. This is the front part of the award that's going to go right in the center of all the pleated circle. So once you've pulled everything really tightly, make sure you get off any extra fabric and glue everything down with a lot of extra glue. Pop that right into place, and you've got yourself a completed ribbon. These are the supplies we're going to be using today. long wood stakes and some shelf brackets that I picked up from the local home improvement store. Go ahead by starting with cutting them open and taking 2 of those long stakes and cut off the tips. These are going to be the pieces of wood that go all the way across that picket fence that makes it look like it. And then the extra ones that we have inside the pack, we're going to just space those all out, making sure they're nice and straight and even and leveled the best you can. And then you're going to take some wood glue and put them on first, and then a little bit of hot glue for that short-term, long-term hold. Make sure everything's in position, and then go ahead and hammer everything down with a nail that has a nice wide top nail head. You want to make sure that if you use a smaller nail, you don't want the nail head to be little, because when you do, over time, if it gets dropped or moved, those nail heads will maybe slip or break out. So I like to use a nice wide nail head, and you're going to do 2 on every single one of those joints. This way it's super sturdy and super strong. And this whole project cost me about $8.50 to make, which is just so fun. Now we're going to take another stick and we are going to measure it down the insides of those outer stakes. We want it to be just short enough that it would fit right in between those 2 end spots, because that's going to become the brace, the feet at the bottom of this picket fence. So first I cut down that line, and then I also cut down 4 more pieces that were all the same size. These are the feet that we need, that is going to be able to make it stand up nice and strong without it falling over or having any issues with having to lean it on your house or anything like that. So what I'm doing is, again, adding some wood glue, adding some hot glue, and then I'm coming in with my staple gun and I'm making sure I'm stapling it in certain places so that it is nice and snug on there. And when you're done, it should look like a giant letter I. Now at this point, I can go ahead and bring on the bracket and the fence. I had my son actually holding it for me so that I didn't have any issues with it falling over. And then I'm going to just go ahead and screw in my screws so that way it's nice and tight. Well, as you can see here, it's standing up without any issues, and it is super sturdy, friends. I was so excited how sturdy this thing was. I kind of saw it in my head. I was hoping it was going to be nice and strong and secure, and it actually was. So now at this point I can go ahead and paint. You're going to see my family walking back and forth a lot, and you're also going to see from this angle my giant cup of water that I always keep next to me whenever I'm crafting. I love water. I am going to be using these flags, 2 of them from the Dollar Tree. There's 2 in a pack for $1. And then I'm also using these 2-star banners and some twine. Start by taking the flags off of the sticks. Hold on to those sticks because they are really nice and we can use them for a DIY on another day. And go ahead and gather up on the blue side first. I just gathered it together and added little tiny dots of hot glue, not too much there. And then I'm going to flip it over and then start going back and forth with like a zigzag to create that pleated gathering up around the side. You can see that on the side where the stripes are, I didn't bring it all together like I did on the side where the blue is, because I wanted to be able to create that swag look in the fabric. So here I am. I actually was using my pliers there just to kind of pinch it down a little bit because I didn't want to burn my fingers, and sometimes I do, but the majority of the time, friends, I actually don't burn my fingers. I have really, really tough hands from the years that I worked in restaurants. Leave a comment down below to let me know if you've worked in a restaurant as a teenager and if your hands are just as tough as can be when it comes to the heat of things, because I just, seriously, hot things don't bother my hands. So here I am at this point. I took those stars off of that burlap wrap that they were on, and I'm just gluing them together how I like them and adding a loop for the twine on the back side so I can hook them onto my fence. And then once I've got those all on and nice and tight, I'm going to go ahead and add some hot glue right in between them and bring them together in the center so that way they go all the way across my fence. Now we're going to head outside where the fence is on my porch. I'm going to add a long wreath. I have this cute welcome sign that I picked up last year around Christmas time. I just zip tied that right on, and then I'm adding on my cute flags with the stars. For this DIY, I have been holding on to this Christmas bell for quite some time because I knew I wanted to turn it into a Liberty Bell. I wanted to paint it like the American flag. I thought this would be so cool to do this as a DIY, and it's a really easy one to get a really cute American look for your home decor. I'm going to be taking my white paint and a paintbrush, and I'm going to be painting over the part of the bell that has a rougher texture. I'm going to leave the shinier part of that red, so that represents the red stripe, and then I've got the white stripe. And then up at the top, I'm going to paint that top part blue. And then after that, I'm going to let it just sit to the side and dry, because if you've looked at the Liberty Bell, you'll know that there's a wood beam that's through the top to hold up the bell. So I'm going to take 4 popsicle sticks with some brown paint, black paint, and water. I mixed it together and created a stain. And now I'm going to cut them down so that they can overlap each other, because if I just cut them in the exact same area, they wouldn't be as strong holding up on the very ends. So 2 of them are a little bit longer, the other 2 are a little bit shorter, and I'm kind of overlapping them in the middle that you can see here, so that they have a nice hold when I go to slide it through the top of the bell where the handle used to be. Crazy enough, it was the perfect fit for it to go through the top of the bell. You can see here that there was still some paint on the inside that hadn't dried, so I'm just going to take a wipey and just wipey that off. Sometimes I get a little impatient when I paint and I start going on to the next step before things are dry. So excuse me if I do end up doing that from time to time, especially when I'm trying to film things on a crunch. I kind of get a little impatient. Tell me in the comments below, are you a very patient person for paint to dry, or do you get a little impatient like I do sometimes? Now at this point, I'm just taking the back of my paintbrush and I'm just tapping on little dots to represent the stars. You could paint on stars if you wanted to, but I decided to do little dots. And now I'm going to take a very loopy twine bow and I'm going to glue that on right at the neck of the top. I felt like it still was missing a little something and it needed a little bit more at the top, because we could stop there or we can do a little bit more, which is always my favorite. I'm going to layer 2 star buttons on top of each other, and then I'm just going to put that right in front of the bow. But before I put that down, I felt like it was still missing something, so I decided to put one of these finial wood toppers right on top, and I felt like that really did just complete that look. And then I went ahead and added on my button at the very top, and I think this turned out so cute. I hope you all enjoy it and we'll give it a try. If you are new to my channel, welcome. My name is Heidi Sonboul. I've got 4 channels here on YouTube. My Heidi Sonboul DIY channel, my Heidi Sonboul health channel, my Heidi Sonboul home channel, and my Heidi Sonboul paper crafting channel. I have so many fun things that I'm going to be rolling out with these channels all throughout the rest of this year, so please do subscribe if you're new and if you find that these are suiting to what you like in a YouTube channel. Our next project is going to be these supplies: 4 shower rings, a bunch of random popsicle sticks, and then this cute little crate that you can pick up at the Dollar Tree. So what I'm doing right now is I'm taking my popsicle sticks and I'm cutting out a little notch so that it fits nicely on my shower ring. So you can see here that I'm cutting away just a little bit, and I am making sure that it fits nice and tight in there. And it's going to allow it to be able to sit nicely on that shower ring where it's got that divot in that you would lock it onto your shower bar. And I'm going to do that 4 times. I'm going to just add some little bit of E6000 and then go back in and reinforce it with hot glue so it really dries nice and strong, and it's a really sturdy wagon axle base for your little wagon box. So you can see here that I've chipped away a little part so it sits on there nice and perfectly, and then while it's drying, I'm going to just test to make sure that it's going to clear the sides of the box, which it does. and then I'm going to go back in and do the other side of the axle. Now we could leave it like that, but honestly that's going to break really easy, and I'm not about that. I want you all to be able to make projects that are going to be able to allow your kids to pick them up without them snapping really easy. So what I'm going to do is, once I've got all 4 of those rings on, I'm going to take it and flip it over, and now I'm going to add another popsicle stick to it. And this is going to be able to allow it to be a little bit stronger, and you could leave it like that, or you can continue to make it even stronger. So you can see here that I'm gluing that on, and I'm adding a whole bunch of hot glue around those rings to make sure that that popsicle sticks on there really well. And now I'm going to take another popsicle stick and I'm going to cut it down and create a box, and I'm going to add some hot glue, and I'm going to add that onto it. So you can see that now all of a sudden it's really strong, and it really does look like a wagon axle, and it's going to be able to support the weight of the box and anything you put in it. And if a child picks it up, we don't want it to break, right? Because I have kids. My 4-year-old will not leave this alone now that she knows where it is in her house and she wants to play with it. She keeps telling me she wants to give her Barbies a ride in it. So here we are, just adding on the other, and then you can see here when you put it on, it's created a cute little axle for the bottom of our wagon. Remember that flag earlier that we used on our mason jar? I'm going to just cut a little bit of that stick down. This is the stick left over from that flag that we used earlier, and I decided to repurpose the stick and use it as a handle on my wagon. So I'm going to just take some hot glue and press this right into place and make sure that it's on there nice and secure before I add in some more hot glue. And we want to really reinforce this, because this might be one of those ones, if a little kid tried to pick it up by it, it could potentially come off. So just add a lot of hot glue, and those different crevices will allow it to really seal on there nice and tight with enough hot glue. Now at the top I've added 2 small little dowels right underneath that little gold piece on the flagpole. And I'm going to add on some popsicle sticks to really reinforce it, to make sure that it's on there nice and strong and secure, so it looks like the little handle on a wagon, so you could actually pull it. And I just think that this is so cute, and I love these little boxes. They're so cute, and they're the perfect size to put on a shelf if you want to have that wagon look on your shelf for the summertime, or even going into the fall. It could just be so cute, whatever you decide to put inside of your little wagon. And you could even decide to leave it empty, and you could put like a little Christmas tree in it around Christmas time and just switch out your decor. But here I am, I'm adding on these little support popsicle sticks to make the handle look really polished and finished. And then at this point we need to move on to the wheels. So I'm going to take some skewer sticks that you can also get at the Dollar Tree. Everything came from the Dollar Tree for this project. And I'm going to just cut them down to size. Sorry, I was off screen just a little bit when I was doing this. Sometimes it's so hard. I get going and I start crafting, and then I forget that I need to look up just to make sure I'm on screen. So I'm so sorry about that. I really do try all the time to be on camera, on screen, but it just happens sometimes. So I'm just now going to take 4 different sticks, and I'm going to go back and forth on the different sides to make it lay as flat as I possibly can, adding on those 4 skewer sticks, cutting them down to size, and then I'm going to repeat that step on the other 3 wheels as well. And you can see here that it just makes the cutest little wheel. Then I took it outside and I gave it a nice coat of white spray paint. You can spray paint it whatever color you want, or paint it. I like spray paint because it gets in those little crevices really easy and it bonds well to the projects. And then I'm going to take some brown paint and I'm going to dry brush on a little bit of brown paint to give it a distressed look. And then I'm going to take my sandpaper and just rough up the edges. Now I've popped in a piece of foam core. I don't recommend gluing it down if you want to switch it out throughout the seasons. That's what I did. I just put it in there. And now I'm going to add in some ferns and some eucalyptus and some boxwood. And I'm just going to make it look really green and full. And then I'm going to add in 3 little 4th of July flags. I just think that these little American flags are so cute from the Dollar Tree. And I do like to manipulate them a little. You can see here that I'm waving them back and forth to give them some more texture versus just having them laying in there where they look all kind of out of control, I love to just play with them and twist them around to make them have that finished look. And then once you've got them all in, you can display them on your shelf. For this DIY, we're going to be using 4 plungers from the Dollar Tree, but if you have wood dowels already from your home improvement store, you can use those too. Now I'm going to use my heat gun to remove these stickers because they are so hard to remove if they are at room temperature. I went ahead and took my miter box and I cut them down to all different sizes, the 4 different stakes from the plunger. And then I went and sanded down the ends where I had cut them in half to make sure that they're nice and smooth and there's no splinters coming out. Now I'm going to be painting each one of these dowels, and it's all going to be red, white, and blue since this is a very patriotic themed video. I'm going to go ahead and do this one where I had all white first, then I added on blue at the top, and now I'm coming in with some red stripes, and then with the back of my brush I'm going to create some polka dots. Once that was dry, I moved on to the next one. I painted it all white. I did some thick blue stripes. On the third one, I did it all white again, painted on thick red stripes, and then a thick blue band in the middle with some polka dots. On the fourth one, I went ahead and did only thick white bands, as well as white polka dots all over it. And then you can see here that I came in with those last sticks. I did a solid blue, a solid white, and a solid red. Now this completes all of my sticks. You can honestly paint them whatever colors you want. But now I'm going to take my drill, and I've decided to do this because I wanted to make sure that the wick, the rope, and the twine that I'm putting at the top really stays on there and they don't fall off over time. So you can skip this drill part if you don't think it's necessary, but I really like my things to feel like they've come from the store. So you can see here that I drilled that hole. I didn't go in very deep, just deep enough to be able to put a little bit of the rope or the twine down in there when I hot glued it in so it would stay in place. So to create the wick, you're just going to take a rope or a piece of twine. You're going to tie it in a knot or 2 until you get it thick enough that you want. And then you can see here for the rope, I cut off a lot of that extra thickness of the rope. I left 2 of those little fibers. Those little fibers are going to be what I stick down into the hole to really lock it down in there. And then I just keep twisting it until it's on there nice and tight. And then at the very end, I'm just going to fray out all the ends of those ropes or the twines to make them look like they're the ends of a firecracker. Now I decided I want mine to stand up, so I'm going to just keep testing it. I'm standing up the first one, gluing on a couple of them, checking to make sure it can still stand up on its own, and I'm just going to keep adding on all of these different firecracker sticks until it's all standing up nice and firm. Now I'm going to take some twine and I'm going to wrap it around it a whole bunch of times, and this is where I have a free printable for you all. The free printable is linked down below. It'll take you to my website where you can download it in a safe environment so you won't have any issues downloading it. And then you're just going to basically wrap on your twine, cut out your tag, and then be able to add the tag right to it. And there's a couple different tag options. Pick the one that you want. Have fun with these printable tags for the 4th of July American theme. And then once you're all done, it's ready to be displayed in your home. Our next DIY is going to be using these 3 frames, some leftover canvas fabric whenever I cut apart those canvas pieces that you always see me doing here on my channel, and one of these hang up USA signs. I just knew that we could make this sign so special, so we're going to start by taking apart the frames. Go ahead and take off the plastic, pull out the backing, and then use the paper insert to cut down the canvas fabric to size, And then once you've got all of those cut down to size, we're then going to take them and glue them right onto the back of the frame backing. And then you're going to just pop that right back in, add some hot glue so it stays in there nice and snug, and then we're going to just pop off those cute letters and we're going to start gluing them right onto the frames. So what I like to do is I want to make sure that my letters are actually all lined up with each other, because otherwise you could have an issue with maybe one being higher than the other. So I did the first one, and then I'm going to line up my frames next to each other, add lots of hot glue, and then just make sure that they're all the same spot on the frame. And then for the last one, I'm going to just add some more hot glue once again, flip it over, and add the A. I thought this was just so cute, and it is the easiest, quickest 4th of July DIY, or for whatever other American holidays we celebrate. And then I'm going to take the bow from the original sign that was able to hang up, and I'm just going to hot glue that right down onto the S. I thought that this was such a cute idea to be able to add a little personality to the S right in the middle, and why not? The bow was already on the sign anyway. So altogether this is going to cost you just $4 to make, and I just think that it has such a bang for your buck, cute idea to put up somewhere on your shelf to celebrate the holiday. Our next project is super simple, and I always like to do one of these at least somewhere in my video because I want you to be able to see that you don't have to spend a ton of time like I would on necessarily a wagon or a bike and creating all those steps. All I'm going to do to create a really cute 4th of July look, I am going to just take one of these cute flags from the Dollar Tree. I'm going to take it off the stick, save the stick for a project we have coming up, and then I'm going to hot glue that flag right to the mason jar. I'm going to take off the lid so that way I can add a candle to the inside, and then I'm going to take some twine and then just wrap it around twice and tie a knot. I think this is the cutest look, super simple to do, and I just love how it looks. And then I decided to add the gold lid back to the top because I just felt like that really finished the look. For this DIY, we are going to be using the larger star on the free printable. You're going to cut that out and then pick whatever fabrics you want to work with. I'm using a denim, a gingham red, and then a pattern, a light tone-on-tonal fabric for my white. So I've got my red, white, and blue, and what we're going to do is once the star has been cut out, you're going to come in with your hot glue. You could sew these. If you are a seamstress, you love to sew, by all means go ahead and sew it. If you're not and sewing intimidates you, you definitely can use hot glue like you could see me doing here in this video. So I went ahead and I glued down as close as I could to the edges of the star points, making sure that I also connected the glue in the middle point where the little valley comes down from the stars. You've got the point and then it comes down the middle. And then once everything was dried, I went ahead and started adding just a little bit of batting to make them a little bit poofy. And then I went ahead and started to close up that last point. I did one side first, then I played with the batting just a little bit because you want to make sure that there's batting in that last point. And then I added glue on the other side, making sure the batting was out of the way. I went ahead and pressed down. Now this last part is definitely optional. I like a rustic 4th of July look, very farmhouse Americana. So I'm going to go ahead and just distress the sides of these just a little bit with some brown paint, and then you can play them up with buttons or twine, whatever you would like to put on them. It really just makes them come to life at this point. The supplies we're going to be using are 4 rectangle signs from the Dollar Tree. one piece of foam core board, and then these 3 darling metal stars you can put in your garden. All of these are from the Dollar Tree. I cannot wait to show you what we're going to be making. Now what we're going to be doing is we're going to take 3 of those signs and we're going to add nice dollops of hot glue, and we're going to butt them up next to each other on this piece of foam core board. Make sure you come all the way up to the corner and then press down nicely, and then you're going to repeat that exact same thing with the other 2 pieces. But that 4th one, we're going to want to hold on to it because we're going to be doing something different with it. So make sure once you've got them down, go ahead and pull off those stickers on the back. I will warn you that it will pull back some of the chipboard, so just try to take it off as gently as you can, but we're going to be painting it so it'll help cover up that issue. So here I am, I'm adding on the last one, and then also use some hot glue to fill in those holes where the sign used to have the hang up string on it. Now we're going to take that 4th one and we're going to lay it down. Don't glue it yet. Go ahead and trace around it so we can cut out the extra foam core that we don't need. This is going to allow us to be able to save our time, and I'll show you why in a minute, with painting, because we don't want to paint that 4th one yet. That's going to be blue. So here I am, I'm just cutting away that extra stuff, and then the 3 that are already glued down, we're going to give them a nice coat of white paint. When you get to those spots where we pulled up the sticker, just add a little bit extra. I only did 1 coat of white paint because I'm using this house paint since I'm trying to be wise with my supplies and I'm not trying to go out to the store. I really love using house paint on these kind of projects just because it goes a long way and it has a really nice coverage. If you feel like it's still kind of spotty, you can give it a 2nd coat of white paint if you need to. Then once that's done, you're going to put it to the side, let it dry, and we're going to move on to our stars. Now with these stars, all you need to do is just remove the little stake that is on them, glued to them. They come off pretty easy, and once you do, just hold on to those because these are great pieces of wire if you need them for a craft in the future. Now we're going to take some painter's tape and I'm going to just space out some strips where it is going to create red and white stripes because we're making an American flag, if you haven't already guessed it. Now I did want to have my 13 stripes to represent the 13 colonies, but this is the thing. I wish that I actually had made the red stripe on the bottom and the red stripe on the top so it looked exactly like the American flag. So just make sure you play around with this before you add in the red paint, because later on you'll go back and think, oh, that was the one mistake that I did make. I wish that I had just moved around the tape just a little bit. So make sure you get your spacing right. I didn't even measure it. I just kind of eyeballed it and put them down. And then I made sure I pressed down really well on that tape because I didn't want to have any issues. So here is the blue piece. You can see that I have already spray painted that blue, but we're still not going to glue it down yet. So now I took it outside and I spray painted it red. I spray painted the stars white, and you can see here that I also spray painted that 4th piece blue. I think taking off the painter's tape was the most satisfying. You can see here that I had a little bit of bleeding, but we're going to be covering up that with one of the stars, so that's not even an issue. Now at this point, I'm going to add in some more hot glue. I like doing big dollops of glue just because I feel like when you do a long string of glue, it dries way too quick. So I like to do big dollops just like you saw me doing there to make sure that it still bonds well without having any issues. Once I've got my glue, I went ahead and pushed down really hard to make sure everything bonded well, and now I'm going to just distress it. You don't have to do this distressing part if you don't like it. I personally like a little distressing on my projects, not too much, but just the right amount. And I went around my stars as well. I'm just adding some brown paint to the edges to make it look a little bit rusty, like it's been outside for a while. And then I'm going to take some twine at this point, and I'm going to use 3 long pieces. Now you can see here that I'm cutting them down to size, and then we're just going to simply find the placing, flip it over, and glue it on the back side so it's nice and snug. And then you're going to flip it over again, and then find the spot you want again, flip it back over, and glue it again. And you don't have to add these twine pieces to it, but I just thought it added such cute charm and personality to this instead of it just being a typical 4th of July sign. Now at this point I'm adding a lot of hot glue to the back of my stars, and I'm just nestling one down into the rope. I thought that was really cute. And then the other star, I'm gonna bring it over to the side so it kind of hides that little bit of that bleeding. And then to finish the look, I'm gonna add a really cute bow right at the cross points of the twine to make it look like it was tied on. For this DIY, we are going to be using some beads from the Dollar Tree, some twine, some wooden beads that I bought from Amazon. I'll link them down below. And then these wooden stars. Now this is how I keep all my beads. I just throw them all in a bin because it's so much easier for me to get them that way instead of having little bags bursting all over my craft room. We're going to start by using my Crop-A-Dile, and I'm going to punch a hole right through the wood. Now, if you've never seen the Crop-A-Dile tool before, it's really cool because it goes through wood and metal and all sorts of hard surfaces. That just makes it so easy to be able to use it. Even a hard resin plastic, you can go through it. So I'm going to take my twine, I'm going to loop it through, and then I'm going to tie a knot so that I can start threading on beads. But before I do that, to make sure the twine doesn't keep unfraying and giving me a hard time to do that job, I'm going to just take some washi tape and really tightly I'm going to roll it around the end to make it more of a needle head so that I can be able to get the beads on really easy without there being any struggle. Once I've got that on there nice and tight, I can start threading on all of the beads. Now I'm going to be using the blue and the red beads from the Dollar Tree and then the wooden beads that I picked up from Amazon. So I'm going to be going back and forth with a pattern: blue, wood, red, wood, blue, wood, red, wood. I'm going to keep going back and forth until I get to the very end of the twine. Then I'm going to come in with one more star. Now I've seen a lot of people making these online and they do a tassel on the end, but I thought it would be cute to customize it and make it my own, to add another star at the end since I had another one on hand. And then I thought I would just tie a nice tight knot on it to make sure that it doesn't lose the tightness. I really like when the beads are on there nice and tight on the twine versus them kind of being loose and moving around. So I like to add a little bead of glue to really make sure everything locks into place. And then after that, I'm going to cut off that last little bit where the washi tape was that we're not going to be using, and it's ready to be decorated with somewhere in your home. These are the supplies we're going to be using, and actually we're going to be using a little bit less than what you see here because I was kind of editing things out as I went. But this main sparkly hat from the Dollar Tree and a couple of these accessories, especially these stars, we're going to turn this into the cutest decor for 4th of July or other holidays that symbolize that red, white, and blue theme. So we're going to start by taking these stars, and we're going to take these shish kebab sticks. I always love saying that, by the way, shish kebab sticks. And we're going to take the pokey in and put them right into the stars. And you don't want to go all the way to the top because they will poke out through the top of the star. I made that mistake a couple of times and it caused the top of the star to pop off. So just go in just a little bit where you're allowing it to be nice and firm in there, and then you're going to take some hot glue and just put a tiny little bead of hot glue on both sides of that stick going up into the star, so that way it's nice and snug on there so these don't pop off over time. Now the white ones I'm planning on just keeping white, but the red and the blue I decided to turn those gold. I liked the idea of these being gold, so I took them outside and first spray painted them lightly with gold paint to kind of camouflage that red and that blue. And now I'm going to take some of this old school Martha Stewart glitter that I bought years ago, and I remember splurging on it and thinking that it was such a huge investment. And look, it totally was, because I still have it. I loved that it had so many different colors all in one pack. So now what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be adding Elmer's glue right onto the stars, and then I'm going to glitter them so that way I can cover up those previous colors that were on them. I just loved the look of the glitter being gold versus the red and the blue, because I felt like it just looked more high end. So once I've got everything glued and glittered and I'm ready to move on to the next fun part, now what we're going to do is we are going to take some fabric. I decided to go with a burlap because I just love burlap so much. I think I have a little bit of an obsession with burlap. Maybe it's just me and I'm just a little too crazy for burlap, but I just really love it so much. So we're going to take a band and wrap it around the hat, and now we're going to take some gingham or buffalo check, whichever you want to call this fabric. It can be called both. And I'm going to fold down one of those sides just so that I can kind of clean it up a little bit, because one side looked a little bit rougher than the other. And then I'm going to also wrap that around the hat, creating a double layer of interest and texture on there, which I just think is so cute. And then for the red, I wanted to make sure that they kind of came off the side, kind of like a Kentucky Derby hat that you would see. I just thought that was so cute. And then I'm going to take a piece of this foam that I picked up also from the Dollar Tree, and I'm just going to break it down to size that I need and glue that right to the top of the hat, because we are going to start putting things on top of the hat to really make it special. Now, when my boys were little, they loved the book Go Dog Go, and at the very end there is the reference to the girl dog who's trying to impress the boy dog, and she keeps saying, "Do you like my party hat?" And that's kind of where this idea came from. I just thought it would be so funny if I just made an awesome 4th of July party looking hat. And yes, you could totally wear this to a party if you wanted to, but I wanted to do it as like a centerpiece or somewhere on a shelf in my home. I thought this would just be so cute and so different and just fun. I love home decor items that have personality and just, I don't know, it makes your home feel that it's interesting and different and not the traditional stuff that you would see every single holiday. So I just thought this was so cute. So what I'm doing right now is I added that star, the bigger one, and now I've poked a bunch of holes in that foam, and I'm just adding in a whole bunch of these boxwood stems. I love picking up the really long garlands from Hobby Lobby with a 40% off coupon, and then I just keep breaking it apart until I get all the way down to nothing, and then I go back and buy another one. And I usually can get them for about $9 to $10 for a really long garland, and it lasts me so long. It's a really great deal to do it that way. So now I'm going to add in all of the white stars and just add on a bow to the side. And also, I just wanted to also say thank you everyone so much who popped over to the featured channel yesterday. You all loved them so much, and you could see why I featured them. They were the cutest channel, those two cousins, and I'm so glad you all went over and you made their day. They have just been celebrating and jumping up and down with joy because you all went over and loved them as much as I did, and their channel has grown so much. So I just want to say thank you all so much, and that's the whole point of this DIY summer. I want to feature channels that just deserve some love. Now here I am, like I said, just adding in those gold stars, and you saw that I also added in that coiled twine. It's actually twine that's wrapped around a piece of wire. That's something new that they're carrying in the floral section at the Dollar Tree. Go check it out. Our next DIY is something that gets requested all the time here on my channel. A lot of people want to see banners, and I thought, you know what, I'm going to make a banner this time for all of you that have been requesting for quite some time. And what we're going to do is use some more of those canvas fabrics, again, that I have been cutting up on my channel a whole bunch. I take those canvas 8x10 frames and I'm trying to get down to the wood base, and I've been holding on to all of these pieces of extra canvas fabrics that I've been cutting away because I wanted to repurpose them. So here I am, I'm just cutting them down to really cute little banners, and I just have a little dovetail at the bottom, and now on half of them I'm going to put some painter's tape so that way I can create a stripe, because we're going to be spray painting this particular one red. Once you've got enough of those all done and you have the amount of fabric that you had left over from your canvases, and if not, you can always use another fabric as well. You don't have to only use the canvas fabric, but I really love it because it takes to spray paint and paint in general really well because they're canvases. So now what we're going to do, we have half of those with the stripe on them, and then I'm going to take some painter's tape and I'm going to just put a whole bunch of strips next to each other. And now I'm just drawing on some stars. They don't have to be perfect, you can see here. And then I'm going to pick it up and put it over on my cutting mat, and I'm going to cut out all of those stars. This was really fun to do. It was really easy, and you could even, I would recommend just putting the painter's tape down first on your cutting mat versus your table like I originally do. That'll save you a step of having to try to pull it back up. But here I am, I'm just peeling off all the extra and getting myself down to the stars, so that way I can add that to the other little banners that we created. And I'm going to just put those on nice and gentle. And once I've got all of those all covered on, I'm ready to take them outside to start spray painting them. So the one with the stars will be blue and the ones with the strip will be red. Now here they are all painted. Taking off the painter's tape was the most satisfying part, I think, of this whole project. I loved taking them off and revealing what they all looked like. This could be such a cute DIY to do for other countries. If you have a country flag that you are proud of and you want to have in your home on your Independence Day to celebrate, or you can even do this for other themes. I just think that this is such a fun thing to do with these pieces of canvas fabric that so many crafters here on YouTube have been using and pulling them off to get to the wood frames on those art canvases. And here I am revealing the blue with the stars. And then at this point I decided to embellish the star part just a little bit. I'm taking some twine and I'm just going around all of the edging where the white and the blue meet up. And I'm just going to create this cute little border of this twine. Now this part is a little tedious, I'm not gonna lie. If this is not for you, you totally don't have to do it. But I just thought that this was a cute added detail to the banner, and I really did love the way that it turned out when I was all done. So once I went around all of my stars, I went ahead and started assembling the banner. So I'm going to just take a long piece of twine and I'm going to add a bead of glue, and then I'm going to fold it over and just glue it right down into place. And I'm going to go back and forth. So I'm going to do a red one, a blue one, a red one, and blue one until I get all the way through them. And then at that point it will be all ready to be hung up in your home for whatever holiday you might be celebrating. I personally love banners, and so we're going to take this part of the printable that looks like a rainbow and red, white, and blue fabric with some twine. Now we're going to start by cutting out the printable rainbow shape, and we are going to cut out as long as you would want your banner to be. We're going to cut out a whole bunch of these half circles. And then once you've gotten all of the amount that you want, I believe for myself I cut out 16 of them because I wanted it to be really long to be able to go over our entertainment area in our living room. And then I cut down that biggest ring to the second line And now I'm just going to double up the fabric so you can see this is how I got my cuts really quickly. I went ahead and just doubled up the fabric, and I'm going to cut out the next size. Now I would recommend, if you want to not cut down your pattern, you could always print it out 3 times to have the 3 different sizes. But I just printed mine out once, and I'm just cutting it down to size. And then you can see after I cut those rows, I went ahead and cut up that middle part where the fabric was folded on the white. Then I'm going to cut it down to size again for the smaller part of this banner, which is the red, and then I'm going to again cut at that fold seam line. Now we're going to start assembling it, which is super easy. Anybody can do this, but it's so fun. Now you could tie a little beautiful knot at the end, but I decided to let mine just be loose without a knot where it's a loop knot to hang it up. I figured I'd rather be able to tie it up. So you can see that I took the blue circle first, put down a bead of glue, put the twine on top of it, and then I'm going to come down with another bead of glue, and I'm not gluing them down at the round part because I want that to be able to flap if I put them outside in the wind. I thought it would be really pretty. Gonna glue that down, and then I'm going to add on the red. And I just kept repeating that over and over and over again. I thought this could also be really cute if you did this for like watermelon or, you know, a certain rainbow color if you wanted to as well. And now I'm just coming in with some brown paint to distress it to give it that rustic Americana farmhouse DIY craft look. Once I was all done distressing it, it was ready to be hung up. This DIY is going to be using this twine and a whole bunch of these strips of fabric. I know we all have strips of fabric like this just sitting around, and I want to show you how you can make something so adorable with such minimal steps. So anybody who is a new crafter, this is a great one to try. Take those strips of fabric and go ahead and cut them down to smaller sizes. You're going to add some glue, take a piece of twine, and then you're going to just simply fold it over and pinch it all down into place. Then this is where it gets really cute. Start alternating the patterns of the fabrics with whatever colors you want, and you're going to just continue to add on these fabrics again and again until you have a really fun, simple banner. This would be so cute hung up with a decor shelf or on a mantle or around a front door. So many fun opportunities. The next DIY is going to be using these supplies, these scarf bandanas that I found from the Dollar Tree. I was so excited when I found these because they are so perfect for what we're going to be making. That tote bag and a pool noodle with some rope. Now we're going to take that pool noodle and we are going to cut it up with 3 different sizes. One small, one medium, one large, and then we're going to take a scrap and go ahead and fill in the center point so that way it's nice and filled in right there in the middle, because we're going to turn these into cute fireworks. Now we're going to also take this tote bag and we are going to cut it so that it's got a neutral fabric in there, and you can see here that I'm cutting off a smaller piece and I'm going to go over the top of it. I've decided that it was best to pull it nice and tight over the top, and then I was going to wrap around the bottom and the side with the other fabric, just rolling it up. And you can also see that I did 2 pieces over the top to make it kind of camouflage that red. You don't want to see that red. Now I did a little fold over at the top so it has a nice clean line, and now I'm just hot gluing and rolling it all up into place, tucking it in at the bottom, and then I'm going to cut down a circle. I'm just going to keep measuring it until it's the right size, and then I'm going to glue that on to give it a nice finished look at the bottom. Now we're going to basically just repeat that same process. Now friends, I want to make a disclaimer. I would never cut an actual flag. This is not an actual American flag. It has the pattern of it. I know that there is a lot of people out there that would be feeling very sensitive to this, and I promise you I am a diehard American. This is just a bandana that it's okay to cut this one, but if it were a real American flag, no way would I ever do that here on my channel. I always look for fabrics that have stripes and stars versus cutting a flag, because I just don't feel that that is appropriate. I think my mom would just lose her mind if she ever saw me do that here on my channel. So I hope that you all understand that this is just a bandana and not a flag, so that you understand that I am a diehard American. I am very grateful to live here in this country. Okay, so at this point, now that I've said all that, I'm gonna go ahead and wrap one of the sizes with the blue stars. I thought that this was so perfect and the fabric was the right size that I needed. And I'm gonna go ahead and just make sure it's nice and clean and snug all the way around. And then once that one was done, I could move on to the red. Now the red, I wanted to make sure that I wrapped it enough times so that you don't see the red popping through the white. It will want to do that. So just make sure you know, work wisely with the red so it doesn't show through. I think it's pretty when the white is crisp and nice and bright. So here I am, I'm wrapping it around and I'm just adding off the finishing touches to the bottom. Now here is the funniest thing. When the crafting cousins and I were chatting just a couple days ago about projects, we found out that we were both feeling inspired by this exact same firework project. So the girls over there are doing their own take on this one, and they have a different DIY. They've got two that they're going to be sharing, so make sure you go over and check out their video. At this point, we're going to bring all of our fireworks together and we're just going to tie them up with a rope. I thought that would be really cute. And then at the top, I'm just doing a simple knot around my finger, cutting it off, hot gluing it, and then adding that to the very top of the firework. I thought that this was such a cute little farmhouse detail. And then at the top, I'm going to go ahead and just fray them so it looks like they're ready to go off and be lit for 4th of July. I mean, how cute are these? The total cost was $2. They're super easy to make, and I think they would just be so cute on a table somewhere in your home. This DIY is one that's really popular on Pinterest, and I know a lot of us have these boxes left over because a lot of us have been using the main frame from the Dollar Tree to create different storage crates and things like that. So I've got a lot of these particular little boxes on hand. Now I painted my boxes red, white, and blue, and now I'm going to come in with some gold paint, and you can see that this came from Folk Art. I paused on it so you could see it. This gold paint is one of my new favorites. I just found this and it is the coolest ever. It actually has an iridescent, shiny shimmer gold look to it. It's the best one that I've found. I've tried gold paint before and have been very disappointed many times, but this one was so cool. So I'm just now gluing on some stars on the front to cover up those holes that were originally on the boxes. A lot of us don't know what to do with these boxes unless we figure out a way to cover them, and these stars are perfect to cover them. Now, a lot of people who have done this DIY, they're using block square, but these little crates work out perfect to be able to get that look. And since a lot of us have these left over from previous projects, it works out great. Now, at this point, you can see that I faced two of the boxes down and one of them up. I've decided to make mine a little more custom, a little different than what I've seen all over the place on Pinterest and on other crafters channels. I decided to flip the last one up, and I'm going to use that to put some greenery in. But first I'm just adding on some bows to make sure that that looks really cute. I just love bows. I always love bows on everything. And then now I'm going to take some E6000 and some hot glue. I just find that it sticks better whenever I put both of these adhesives in there so it doesn't fall out over time. And then I'm going to put that right inside of that blue box, add in some greenery that I would like, and then it's ready to be displayed somewhere on a cute little table in your home. This DIY is going to be so quick. I'm taking this container, this bucket that I found at a thrift store, and we're going to flip it into something super cute. It could go on your porch. It can go somewhere in your house. It just depends on what you want to do with it and where you want to put it. If you're planning on putting real plants in it, do make sure you have some drill drain holes at the bottom so that the water can drain out. But I'm going to be putting faux plants in mine, so it'll be safe. So I went outside and I spray painted a really pretty blue color. And now I'm coming in with these really pretty ribbons I found at Joann's. They had all of them on clearance. So I ended up paying very little for this ribbon. And now I'm just going to take them to the length that I need. I'm doubling up the star blue ribbon because I really wanted that to be the focal point. And I'm just going to wrap that around nice and tight and glue it into place. And then I'm going to come back in with this really cute red and white stripe ribbon. And I'm going to glue that right in the middle of those two star ribbons to hide that seam line. Pulling it all the way around, I'm going to tighten it. And then I'm going to add on a really cute bow onto the front. And you could put whatever you want inside of this bucket. I think the cutest thing about it is that it just has that American look to it. It was an easy DIY, and I just love that it's got that red, white, and blue. We are going to be making a really adorable bicycle for your front door, and we're going to be needing one of these frisbees, two of these shovels, and this basket. Now, I also have a tool that I'm going to be featuring. I featured a lot here on my channel. It's called a Crop-A-Dile. But before we move on to that, we're going to take our frisbee, we're going to find the center point and cut it right in half. And these cut pretty easily. I'm just using an old pair of scissors that I use for a lot of plastic cutting or popsicle sticks. I always like to keep a pair of scissors like this on hand that are a little dull but still are able to go through things, so that way I don't mess up my paper scissors. So I do highly recommend using an old pair of scissors on this so you don't mess up your scissors. Once you've got that cut in half, you're then going to take some popsicle sticks and you're going to just start cutting them down to size so they're small, and we're going to go and glue them, a whole bunch of them, all along the rim of the frisbee. This is going to allow us to be able to bring the two sides together and support that middle where it's going to look like a tire on a bike, because otherwise it has a hard time staying together and it won't be as strong and sturdy. So I'm just cutting them down. I'm going all along the edge, as you can see here that I'm doing, and I'm just gluing everything together so that it's nice and tight and secure, and it's going to hold the two pieces together. So once I've got that all the way around, I'm taking off the sticker on the inside, I'm adding hot glue on those popsicle sticks, and then I'm bringing together the two sides. And you can see here that I'm adding in that glue and just making sure that it's nice and tight and snug. So at this point, once you've got all of these sides glued and stuck together, we want to conceal this seam line, because obviously this is not the prettiest seam line, and it's going to be off by just a tiny bit because it's kind of tricky to make sure you perfectly add them up. So what I wanted to do was add some more hot glue, and then I found a pretty lace ribbon that I also picked up from the Dollar Tree, because all of these supplies are from the Dollar Tree, and I'm just going to conceal that line. And once the ribbon is on there, it looks like the tire tread on a bike, which is so cute. I thought this was a really cute detail to add to the bike. So I'm adding just a nice amount of hot glue, coming all the way around that curve, and then cutting off the extra that I don't need. And then now we've got a half part of a bicycle. Now I'm going to be talking about the Crop-A-Dile tool. I've had this tool forever. It's actually a tool to use eyelets on scrapbooking pages and layouts and altered items. I used to be a die-hard scrapbooker, and I still am, but I don't do it as much. But this tool is so cool because it goes through metal. I've had it for years. It goes through hard plastic, and you can see here that it has two different sizes to be able to punch holes. I use the smaller one. So I punched 2 holes on both sides of my tube of my shovel that I took off the handle and the shovel part, and then I punched 2 holes on both sides of that frisbee, so that way I can take some zip ties and tighten it together, so that way it's staying on there nice and secure, and I don't have to just depend on hot glue and E6000 That way it really bonds and holds well, and this is going to be so secure and tight without it falling apart. So here I am, I'm just adding in those zip ties, and now I'm going to come back in towards the top, and you can see here on the Frisbee I cut back a little piece so that the bicycle tire fits nicely up on it. I wanted to be able to make sure that it all fit really well, so I cut back just a little bit on the top part of that Frisbee so that the pole from the shovel can go in there nice and snug. And then I just took that zip tie like you saw there, I punched some more holes, and then I just zip tied it. And now I'm going up towards the top, and I'm punching some more holes here up at the top, and I'm gonna just go through in and out, zip tie it, and then I'm gonna pull it on and then snug it even closer to that pole where the handlebar would be on a bike. Now, to make sure that it doesn't slip out, I'm going to take some E6000 on a popsicle stick, and I'm just going to smooth it out as much as I can, like frosting a cake, and then add some hot glue to make sure it allows it to have that short-term, long-term dry. And then I'm going to just snip off that extra piece up at the top once it's all dry. Now we're going to move on to our basket, and we're going to just take 2 zip ties, and we're going to find a spot on the bike's support bar that we like, and we're just going to zip tie on that basket, so that way it looks like a cute little beach bike going down on 4th of July. And if you're enjoying this video, don't forget to give it a thumbs up and click the subscribe button. Alright, I took it outside and I spray painted my whole bike a cherry red. This was so fun at this point because it really came to life and it really looked like a beach bike. Then I took a tote bag from the Dollar Tree. I cut down a piece of fabric so that way I can conceal the foam that's going to be inside. I didn't want to see the foam. I wanted to see the basket and all the fun stuff coming out. So having this little piece of fabric in there is going to allow that foam to be in there without it looking like there's just foam sitting in there. I liked the idea of that being concealed. So now I'm just putting some pieces in there, and I'm going to fill it all in with flags and greenery, just like you would see if you were down at a beach and it was 4th of July. This is a really fun thing that we used to get to experience when we lived in California for many years. Huntington Beach has these really fun parades and just 4th of July events. So this just reminded me of being in a beach city and living there for a really long time and loving where we grew up, and I always miss California around 4th of July because of this reason. So now that my basket is nice and full, I'm going to go ahead and take some rope and I'm going to wrap it around the handlebars to make it look like they're handlebars. I went around the bar first, and then I went and took another piece and coiled it up. And now I'm going to just make a nice little circle that's going to fit over the end of the handlebar. That's the perfect size. The last thing you're going to do is to add a zip tie on the back to hang it up. This DIY is so incredibly fast, and it is an upcycle. Take any cans that you have in 3 different sizes, and then after that you're going to just take them outside and spray paint them red, white, and blue. I love twine so much. I use it on a lot of my projects, and I just think it adds a very cute farmhouse feel to any project when you do add a little twine to it. So I wrapped around some twine twice, tied it in a knot, and then cut off the extra of that twine that's coming down and added on a star. I did that for all 3 of the cans, and then on the smallest one I flipped it up so that the opening was facing up, and now I'm going to add some greenery. I thought that this made it even more special by adding a little bit of greenery with it. I personally love a lot of greenery in my home because it makes it just feel like a very warm and inviting and calming place. And once you're all done, it's ready to be displayed. going to be doing is using these long painter sticks, and I love these things. In fact, I had a video that came out that was all about using wood, these painter sticks, popsicle sticks. I'll link that at the end of this video so you can all check it out if you want to see it. And there were tons and tons of projects showing how much I love using these painter sticks. I'm also obsessed with these, just like the burlap. Apparently I have this crafting theme going. Rustic is the game, I guess. I don't know. But here I am. I'm just gonna be cutting down these pieces because these are going to become the support system at the bottom, because we are going to create an adorable 4th of July tray that has an American flag look to it. So you can see here that I've got 7 of these painter sticks that are spaced apart just a little bit to give it that shiplap look. And then I'm going to add on these pieces that I cut down. You saw earlier that I was kind of pushing the 2 pieces of wood up against it to make sure they were nice and straight before I glued them down, because you just don't want to have that issue where they're crooked before you glue them down. Now you can see that I moved over that bar or the rod or the stick. Boy, I was having a hard time finding that word. But moving over that painter stick a little bit to avoid those little divots on those painter stick handles. I just thought that was cute to leave that there as a little detail. So I stapled everything down just like I saw there. I'll link my staple gun. I love this thing. You all, if you've been here returning for quite some time, you will know that I love my staple gun and my miter saw box. I use it all the time. I'll link it in the description box. But once I got everything stapled down, I'm going to now take another stick and I am going to just glue it to the side, and I'm pushing it down to the table so that it is nice and flat versus having it kind of raised up above where those supporter sticks are at the bottom. We want to see a nice flat side, so make sure you come all the way down to the table. And now I'm just going to measure out around the sides because I want to create a frame all around this little tray box that we're making. And I just think that this is going to look so stinking cute on a table to display in your home somewhere. And so see here, I'm just adding some more hot glue, putting on those sides that I cut down. And now I'm just kind of eyeballing. This part was probably the trickiest, if I'm being real with you all. I didn't want the staples to accidentally come out on the wrong side, and so when it did, I had to pull them back out until I kind of got the right spot. I realized that on the side of my staple gun there was actually a marker that showed where the staples came out. For whatever reason, I finally figured it out, and then after that I was able to align all the staples up just right and be able to go all the way around, supporting this box where it's nice and sturdy. So here's the thing. Once you add in those staples with the glued painter sticks together, it really becomes so strong and sturdy. It is so high-end and super cute. I could totally see something like Pottery Barn or even like Magnolia Home carrying this, just depending on what colors they might use. But I think it's so cute. So now I'm going to add some circles. I'm just kind of lining it across with a little pencil so I know where to drill, because I decided it would be even cuter and more high-end if I drilled in a couple holes so I can add some handles onto this tray. I just thought, well, why not add some handles so you can just add a little more texture, a little more design and element to it. So I'm just going in with 2 holes on both sides, and then I'm going to take some twine a little bit later on, but first we're going to paint it, because I decided before I added that twine rope to it, I didn't want to accidentally paint it or make a mistake. So now I'm going to take a painter stick, create a line across 4, because that's going to be the blue part. And now I'm going to come in with the red, and I'm going to paint all of those red that need to represent the red stripes on that flag. Now obviously I don't have 13 stripes because that would just be the biggest tray ever. But I am going to have 7 stripes, so you know, it still has the fill. It's not accurate exactly. You could make a bigger one if you wanted to, but I'm not going to do that just because of how big that tray would end up being. And I want this to be able to be fitting on my coffee table in my front room. So here I am. You can see that I've come all the way up to that line, And then when I get over to the siding of this box tray, I'm just taking my time and just painting all along. I'm not going down into the sides of the painter stick. I'm just staying at the top and then just having fun. I really love painting projects like this. You all know that have been here for a while. I love hand painting so much. So here I am just showing you all the steps of just taking your time. I am using an angled brush. I will say that that is one of my favorite brushes to use, is a little angled brush, because then it lets me get into those crevices without making a mistake. And I'm not adding a ton of paint too. You should never have paint so much that it's dripping off of your paintbrush, because then it's just gonna spill on your project somewhere. And then you saw there at the end, I always love keeping my paint. I don't like wasting paint. I'm super frugal like that. So whenever I have too much paint on my plate, I will just scoop that back up and put it back in the bottle. And that way my paint lasts forever. So now here you can see that I'm going to be painting 4 of the painter sticks blue. And doesn't it look so cute with the little divot in on that handle originally there? I'm so glad I kept that part and didn't cut that off. If that's not your thing and you want to cut that down, you totally can if you have a little miter box or some type of a saw, and you could do that too. But I really love the way it looked like that. So now I'm going to go ahead and add in the white, and then I'm also going to do kind of a rustic brush along the box of it. I wanted to still show some of the wood so it has that aged look, and then after everything was dry, I'm going to come back in and sand it. Now again, I know some of you do not like this much of a rustic look for Farmhouse. Some of you like the more clean side, but I am going to sand it a little bit just because I thought it was super cute. Now I will say about my style in my home, I love for my furniture, my couch and cabinets, I like them to be a clean, very traditional looking piece of furniture without a lot of distressing, or actually almost no distressing. But my home decor, I love having distressed home decor pieces. And by distressed, I need to clarify and say that I don't go super rustic looking. And I know that that's a look out there too. And when I see people do it, I think it's so cute. But, you know, I think I push my husband's boundaries sometimes when he sees me roughing things up. He likes things really clean. So I try to find the balance on both of our styles so that we both feel like this is our home, not just my home. So here I am at this point. You saw me trace on those stars, and I am painting them white so that way they look nice and crisp and clean. And I forgot to film it, but I did go back in with a little bit of brown paint and just did a dry brush technique on it. Now on the handles, I'm going to take some rope or a thin or a thicker twine. I'm going to tie some knots, add a little bit of hot glue, and then just cut those off so that the handles can be pulled back and stay in place. Now I saw this inspiration on Pinterest. I've seen a whole bunch of these. I personally think that these are so cute to hang on doorknobs in your home somewhere. I just think it's a little touch of something special for a holiday, and you could make these for any holiday that you wanted. You could write anything on them, but for me, I'm going to be doing an American flag. So I'm going to use some washi tape to create a border for the white. But honestly, as I did this washi tape, I realized I didn't need to do that. I could have just left the washi tape off and just painted it anyway. I was trying to make sure I had a clean line, and then I realized, forget it. I ended up ditching it and went back in and painted the white and red stripes. So you can see that I first put down the white base, and now I'm coming in with the red. And I actually, this time, I got 13 stripes on it like we should have on our flag. Sometimes it gets a little tricky when you're trying to DIY your stripes for an American flag. So I made sure I counted out and I had enough space for all 13 stripes. Then I made sure that was really dry, and then I came back in with my blue. Now I'm going to paint that other side, that blue square. And once that was all dry, I went ahead and grabbed a star painted that white, and when that was all dry, I went ahead and did a little distressing. I know it's not for everybody, but I do really love a little bit of distressing. Nothing too crazy, but just enough to bring in a little texture and make things pop off of each other. So I'm adding a little bit on the flag and the star, and then I'm going to glue it on. But before I did that, I needed to create my punch holes. This is where my Crop-A-Dile comes back in, and I love it so much because it goes through wood so easily and it never hurts my hand using this tool. I punched 2 holes, and then I'm going to go ahead and add on my star right in between those stripes, and I love that it was hanging over a little bit on the ends. I thought that was so cute. And then with my twine, I'm just going to tie a knot on both sides of those holes, and it's ready to be hung up on a doorknob or a hook somewhere in your home. We're going to be using these supplies from the Dollar Tree, and the painter sticks came from my home improvement store. The yarn came from Walmart. So we are going to take these painter sticks and we are going to measure them out so that the right length looks like the brim of a hat. And we're going to do 2 of those, and we're going to hold on to the end of those painter sticks. Don't get rid of those. And then we're going to go back over to this 4th of July sign that I absolutely loved, and normally I would just keep it as is. I actually bought another one just to keep as is, but I knew this little stripe would be so perfect because, friends, I picked up a few of those. I had a dream last night about this DIY, and I knew that I had to get it into this video. I didn't even want to wait another day. So I grabbed all of these pieces that I needed, and you're going to see me here. I'm going to score this circle, and I'm going to snap it just like that. I scored it 3 times with my craft knife, and then I was able to snap it. And then on this part, I'm gonna wanna have a little bit of that blue popping out. I don't wanna lose all of the blue, so go ahead and have a little bit of the blue, and then I'm gonna cut down the sides of that round where we snapped off that side of the circle, and that way so it's nice and clean, and then I'm just gonna smush that right up on there. Now leave a comment down below to let me know if you all dream about crafts like I do. I have ideas come to me in the weirdest moments, sometimes when I'm sleeping, sometimes when I'm in the shower. I know, TMI, but it's really true. Sometimes when I'm crafting on another project, and then, you know, sometimes I get my inspiration too from Pinterest, like I think we all do, and sometimes I just want to show how to make the project, and I think it's so cute. I want it in my own home, so I figure I'll just show it in a video. But this Uncle Sam hanger is just, it was all in my head last night when I was dreaming, and I woke up and wanted to get right to it. So here I am, I've painted his face, and I'm painting the brim of his hat a white, nice crisp white. And once I've done that, I actually went over with 2 coats of paint on both of them just to make sure that the color was nice and sharp versus having issues where you could see it coming through that previous backside of the sign, that wood. Okay, so now what I'm doing is I'm taking some yarn and I'm wrapping it around any object that you can find that will work with the length that you want. And we are going to be creating his goatee. So again, this was in my dream. All of these steps, I was cracking up so much when I woke up that all of these were in my head, and I flew through this project so quick because I knew exactly what to do versus, you know, kind of creating and struggling as I'm going. So we're going to make 5 of those where we tie it only at the top and leave the bottom loose. And now we're going to create 2 smaller ones. So I'm just taking my X-Acto knife craft box and I'm using that to wrap around, but you could also maybe use a book or just something small to wrap the yarn around. And then I'm going to do, like I said, the same thing to the 2 smaller ones, but on the end of these 2 smaller ones, this is the upper part of Uncle Sam's goatee where the little mustache part kind of curls out. I figured out that if I were to take yarn and wrap it around less than halfway, so I guess it's more than a 1/4, Listen, I'm the worst when it comes to fractions. I never got a good grade on those tests when I was in school. But I'm basically just going to be wrapping it around towards the end and then coming back and tying a knot. And this is going to allow it to be able to be curled up like a mustache, or like I said, a goatee, because it's really pliable since it's yarn, and when you glue it down, it looks just like a curled up goatee or a mustache. I was so excited when I realized that this was the possibility with yarn. So now our next step, we are going to take some pink paint and we are going to dry brush on some rosy cheeks, because I just thought that that would be cute and sweet. And I'm just taking my time, just kind of, like I said, dry brushing it on. I'm going to do them on both of his cheeks. And now we're going to add on the bottom part of his goatee. Now, when I was first doing this, I was getting a little nervous because he was looking a little Santa Claus, and I wasn't going for Santa. I was going for God Bless America and Uncle Sam. Uncle Sam wants you. And so as I was working on this, I was kind of thinking, how am I gonna, because this part was not in my dream on how to shape his goatee. So here I am at the bottom. I'm cutting the bottom loops free, and then I am gluing it down to his face where that top part is, where I tied it up at the top to hold it all in place. And you're gonna see in just a minute, it finally came to me while I was working on this one and getting through it, where I finally figured out how to create the goatee shape. So here I am, where I am just gluing it all down into place to make sure it's nice and secure. And then I'm going to come in here and add on the upper part of the goatee, the mustache. And I'm just going to, make sure those are nice and curled on the tips like they should be. And then I'm going to take a break on that beard for a second because I was still thinking about it. I didn't want to make a commitment. I wanted to think about it before I started cutting stuff away. I'm taking 2 small pieces of foam and I'm just going to add them up to the upper part of his hat. And I'm going to use that to be able to add in some boxwood greenery. I thought that this would be really cute since it's going to be going on my front door for this 4th of July. I wanted to make sure that I had a little bit of greenery on there because I don't know, I like that on my front door. So here I am, I'm just adding a little bit. And then remember those stars from earlier, we're going to go ahead and add those back on to the brim of his hat. We're going to put the 3 stars and just glue those right on. The inside of the star had this little support piece so that it would allow the stars to go on to the sign earlier, so I just reused those, repurposed them. And then now we're going to add in a little bit more boxwood. I really wanted to fill in this foam piece so you didn't see the foam. And then I'm going to take some stars that you're going to see how I make these a little bit later in this video. I use these for the second project as well, and I show how I make them. But we're going to take some of these stars on shish kebab sticks and we're going to just go ahead and stick those right into that foam as well. Okay, at this point I was ready to commit to the goatee and I decided I needed to shape it. It needed a haircut. So I started cutting up on the sides to create almost a V shape. And at this point, it really started to look just like a goatee. So that is the trick with this one. If you try it, make sure you give it a nice haircut, which is just the funniest thing to say in this video. But give it a little haircut so it looks like that goatee. And just wait, we're getting close to the end here with this project. He's really starting to come together. For his eyebrows, I created some jelly bean shaped pieces of canvas left over from a previous project. I love reusing the canvas pieces whenever I cut apart those canvas frames, and I popped them up with some foam core. Now remember those 2 earlier painter sticks? We're going to staple them together, add a little bit of that hot glue, and then staple it to the back. I also forgot to mention on the back side, you can see over there to the right, I ended up stapling things all together just to make sure it was nice and snug. And then to finish the look, I added a bow and added a string on the back to hang him up. And then I also made sure I added some hot glue right on that painter stick to camouflage it just in case the wind blows, so you don't see that when he's hanging up on my front door. Thanks so much for watching this video today. Remember, head on over to Instagram and visit me over there so we can get to know each other. I want to see inside your craft rooms and your projects, especially if you try any of these DIYs today. I love chatting with friends over on Instagram. Give this video a thumbs up, and until the next episode, bye friends!